Fantasy VII Remake is an insulting marketing scam with profoundly idiotic nonsense that belongs in a tangled mess that's Kingdom Hearts. I wonder why Nomura didn't include Mickey, Donald, Goofy, and Pluto in this new Kingdom Hearts game. Enix and Nomura killed my childhood and my favourite game. I don't want to play a Kingdom Hearts. Like, Nomura turned Final Fantasy into Kingdom Hearts. Tetsuya, stop, please. This is some Kingdom Hearts level shit. So you guys get where this is going, and I'm not going to try to be salty, though I will admit I'm a little bit rattled. My Jim Jams are a little bit rustled from these tanked scores, which I'm very glad to say this isn't the majority consensus. By and large, FSM Remake's got very good scores, but for the ones who have tanked it to freaking zero. So there was nothing redeemable about the game. The quality of the combat, the pacing, the graphics, everything was just irredeemable shite. Now I get that that's not exactly the case. You know, I might give a game a 10 even though it's not perfect in every regard. You know, I can see a game that has its flaws aspect, but I enjoyed it at 10 out of 10. So I get why people can hate it 0 out of 0, even though those people, of course, would hopefully, because I mean, they've got to be fucking mental otherwise, they would agree not every aspect of this game was a 0, but for the ones that did, the repeated comment of Nomura made it Kingdom Hearts-esque, oh, it triggers me. It triggers me. Not because I can't see where there's a slight truth in it. You know, now they've introduced this new timeliney, wimeliney destiny with a capital D. Sephiroth is essentially kind of naughting himself back on the events of the story. There are definitely some aspects, but not really, not enough to... One, I find it quite funny people even say Kingdom Hearts-esque, like that's an insult. Like, by comparing it, it's immediately a derogatory term. I love Kingdom Hearts, I think it's great. Yes, is it convoluted? Jesus Christ, absolutely, it's confusing as hell. It takes a lot of deep thought and reflection and sitting with the story to even get a modicum of what's going on. You have to mentally engage with it, and what we've seen over the years is Japan very much like that. They kind of, what I love is they trust their players' intelligence to sit with certain plot aspects in a high fantasy game. I mean, just so many people calling this too far, like the Destiny and the plot ghost, like it's too far for a fighting fantasy game. Like the clue's in the bloody name, and the series has always had really far out there trippy plot devices. So what gets my goat with it the most is it's a very lazy, disingenuous complaint to make, in my opinion, when certain aspects of Final Fantasy VII have always been very similar to Kingdom Hearts. You know, just because the director is Nomura on both, which a lot of people are blaming Nomura, even though we kind of know it's Najima and Kitase who are taking the plot to this next crazy evolution, and he's the one trying to reel it in. This very much reminds me of Tabata on 15, you know, how things were out of Tabata's control, he had to do certain things, and yet everyone blamed freaking Tabata just because it's the easiest, laziest things to do. And that's the thing, I get it, like they're the directors of the game, if something's shit with it, just blame them, but it's very lazy, especially when you name drop them for problems that, or what you perceive as problems that they didn't even create. And this is certainly the case with the remake, and why people are even comparing it is because Nomura, you know, he worked on KH, and there's a lot of crossovers. It's Square Enix, a lot of KH fans also play Final Fantasy, and that's what gets me with these reviews, is if you know enough about Kingdom Hearts and the Final Fantasy VII Remake to compare them, that must mean you've played them. Which begs the question, why the hell have you even played these games if they're always a convoluted, trippy plot mess to you? This really just harkens to a really old age dynamic that has been between the West and Japan, I believe. Like, even when Final Fantasy VII originally came out, one of its biggest complaints that actually influenced Final Fantasy VIII, they cut a lot of Laguna scenes because of it, because one of the big complaints from the West was trippy and convoluted. For the original, there were so many people complaining that that story had even gone too far, and that's why we got this dynamic where, you know, say with Final Fantasy 15, Japan and Square Enix knew they needed to market it to the West, so what did they do? They took what was going to be Versus in the F&C universe, a universe with a lot of trippy story, a lot of really deep, intricate, awesome world lore, and they hollowed the living fuck out of it to quote-unquote make it simple and simplistically presented. And look how that went. 15 then ended up not fulfilling half of the expectations of what the Final Fantasy fan base wanted in terms of the depth, the hidden layers, the investigative theorizing and tunnel diving that has always been there with Final Fantasies. And the thing that I want to talk about in this video is why the remake isn't really that different to Final Fantasy VII. I mean, if we just talk about how far and crazy some of the trick devices can get. I mean, look at freaking Cloud diving into his dream memory sequence with Tifa to realign the fragments of his being, his psyche. How is that not Kingdom Hearts-esque? I feel like if OG FF7 had come out after KH, they would still have called it KHS. I mean, even Sephiroth in the original, he interacts with the past. Like we show the past sequence where he picks up a picture that shows Cloud that he wasn't really there at Nibelheim where he thought he was. So there's also other things like memory insertion, removal, manipulation. Tifa's keeping a big secret about Cloud's identity. You know, the same Tifa that Seph actually transforms into. So we've got freaking shape-shifting. We have existential identity crisis and how deep and wild that whole lot gets. We even have a villain who has a bunch of cronies dressed in black robes. There's always been some comparisons between KH and FF7, but where it's taken further with the remake is, of course, a lot of people just did not like the ending. So much so we even have comments like this one. This tanked 0. It was shaping up to be amazing. It could have been amazing. I could not wait for the next installment as I played through the game until I reached the end. What? Come on! I mean, I see this so much. So a lot of people enjoyed and saw the faithfulness, almost the like-for-like faithfulness during the first 90% of this game. It's then just the final 10 or 5% that can retrospectively destroy the entire experience that you had. All for an ending that, by a lot of these reviews' own admissions, they don't even fully understand. Like, they haven't actually sat with it, tried to understand exactly what this new insertion into the universe is about. What is this remake actually doing? What does it mean? What does it mean on the story going forward? No, most people won't go that far. They just see the ending and, oh, fucking hell, some crazy shit I can't understand's happening, fuck it, don't like it. Tank that bitch. Tank that school. Talk about how it's completely unfitting the themes and tonality of something as wild as FF7 and say that it was a disrespectful insertion. Well, what pisses me off about that is if you actually sit and look at it, you'll see that a lot of these concepts have existed over the course of the universe. So things like characters being pulled towards certain destinations or certain meetings, like there is this fateful interconnectedness even in OG, you know, like when Kate Sith that says that Aerith and Cloud are destined to be together, or Cloud's even going to the Northern Crater, like he was destined to go there, he was being pulled, summoned by a feeling. This idea especially evolves out when we look at the entire compilation of the universe, where characters have repeatedly come into the story, like Cloud and Barrett and Tifa. They all get pulled into this story. It all like screams Destiny and has the tonality of Destiny without actually saying Destiny. And there was a lot of stuff like that in FF7 OG, you know, a text-based descaled game that didn't have expressions or voice or any kind of realism whatsoever. So my point kind of is for OG, you could like ignore that sort of stuff. Like if you just wanted to play FF7 OG in a very simple, ridiculous, sometimes there's crazy shit going on, but yeah, you skip over that. Like I feel like that's a lot of people's interpretation of the first FF7 story. And it was a story that didn't explain everything at all. It even left huge trippy elements completely open-ended. So we're fighting the entire game to save the planet and, you know, save humanity. And at the end, we don't even know if we've freaking done it. They left it open to play interpretation. So this whole complaint that the game needs to be more user-friendly, that it's not friendly enough in how it describes everything to players in this first part, even though it's way more expanded, like how Mako works, how the planet works. I'm kind of going off track. The point is that the concept of free will and Destiny pulling characters into places has always existed. It just, the remake has taken the opportunity to add it as an actual literal plot device, as well as being a sort of meta-narrative on itself being a remake. You know, the whole ending just kind of acknowledges that this is a remake and could go in any direction, while at the same time the majority of the game didn't really change much. And by actually looking at that and rather than just, you know, dismissing it as Kingdom Hearts-esque bullshit, there's actually a great more deal of sense than a lot of people are giving Square credit for how this ties in with the story. A great example is Sephiroth. Been seeing the comments, oh my god, they've added Seph on some timeline bullshit. Like they've made him a time traveler. Oh, what fucking terrible writing. And it's like, no, it's not terrible writing, it's terrible understanding, because Sephiroth, even in the original, he learnt stuff like Meteor, like getting hit by it, like the destiny of the planet. He learned all of those stuff by falling into Mako. When Cloud threw him in, when you're in Mako, memory is fluid down there, it transcends time. Even Sephiroth manifesting on the planet is like this whole canonical life stream lore, like how memories work, how they entwine. Hagen talked on it briefly about the planetary cycle, like it's an informative pool of information that the planet grows and evolves from, and even someone like Sephiroth can be brought to the surface by someone else's memory of him. I mean, Sephiroth literally tethers himself to Cloud as a memory. That's how he lingers indefinitely, you know, and you'll have some people there, call that a Horcrux. Oh, he's fucking a Horcrux, this is Harry Potter shit, which I've seen the same stuff for the Whispers. Like this comment, Kingdom Hearts plus 15 plus Harry Potter equals FF7 reboot. Or this one, misleading advertising, Dementors. Like, yeah, really fucking great, really great. You have some black ghosty things that look marginally similar to the Dementors, and I'm not blaming anyone for thinking it, you can think it, but to actually criticize a game on it, even though once you've played it, you see the Dementors and bloody Whispers, they don't work the same at all, they don't suck your bloody soul penis, they just don't work that way. And for even some of the people saying, oh, they don't fit in the game, they ruin the style of FF7, I'm sorry, but FF7 originally, if anyone doesn't know, we're gonna have these, like the black, the failed clones, the black robe dudes, and they weren't going to walk around, they were actually going to be these ghost-like beings that swirled and flew through the air. I'm not shitting you, that was going to be the original concept. So to act like it doesn't fit, to act like a lot of this thematic craziness is some Nomura pumped insertion that doesn't fit into the tonality of a game that, frankly, were it being made today for the first time, I can guarantee they would be far, far more critical with these kind of elements than they are, simply because they played it when they were young and they've got the nostalgia goggles over their head and they're kind of just lazily ranting about, what did original do, why don't I feel the same way, it must be because of this ending. Now there may be some really valid and genuine complaints, I ain't saying it's perfect. If you want to have an argument about how this could affect the story pacing going forward, the other story beats, are the character development arcs too fast moving, have they trivialized death? Those are great. Those are some great debates to have, and if I see someone make them, I can respect them. But it's the Kingdom Hearts that just bugs me, because it shows very little understanding for the actual universe lore, especially with the areas that I've seen people poke at, because actually to me the more I've dissected and looked into this remake, and it's not so much Kingdom Hearts-esque, I'd say it's more FNC. This has become way more Fabula Nova Crystallis, what with the allusion to cycles, characters that have existed on other cycles getting slight remembrances from those previous ones. Especially I love it with the Cetra. The Cetra have had a lot of amazing stuff alluded to that we can theorize over. I love the idea that there's like a Ragnarok in the game, that the VR sequence was showing one timeline being broken. I'm actually going to go down a little tangent with this real quick. Why do you think the Cetra created a black and a white materia? It was to bring around the destruction and the rebirth cycle. I love the idea that the original is also another cycle, but even like the OG, like the Cetra were depicted like ancient Egyptians, which is very different to the sort of nomadic tribe-like Cetra we saw in the VR. And while there were different Cetra tribes, this feels like a whole different era, a whole different culture between these two. And it just all kind of alludes to repeating cycles. And some people will be like, oh, that's FNC bullshit. And I've even seen FNC bullshit complaints, like, oh, they've made it 13S. And again, it's just another lazy comparison, because the nature of the soul cycle, or like individuals going on a soul's journey, has always been there from OG. That's exactly what Aerith was talking about. I even love the idea that the reason why they depicted these Cetra like ancient Egyptians with the meteor is because actual ancient Egyptians used to hunt meteorite, which must have been a laborious task back then. They managed to make 16 ceremonial daggers, and these daggers were placed in the mouth of the deceased person, Egyptian. One was Tutankhamun, because the meteorite was what helped the soul go on to its next cycle. Which is exactly what this meteor coming down is to do, is to reset a new cycle, a new timeline. By the same nature of the soul's evolution, every soul has a purpose, it has a destiny, it has a course, a reason why it's on the planet, some of which are way more intrinsically linked to the fate of the planet and the importance than others, but it's all been there thematically, and that's why I think what the remake has done at the ending of it, it does tie, it does work with the law of the universe, but Square Enix have just gone the step further to sort of break the fourth wall on it in an ironic kind of remake narrative, and for that to be the thing that breaks the camel's back of your enjoyment for the 7 story, for that to be what's making people assume that the rest of it going forward is going to be some wild, ungrounded, high in the fucking sky, lost up its own arse of plot riddle insanity, well, sure, that could freaking happen, but we don't know until we've seen the next part. And if you love the majority of the first game, then I don't see why you would choose to just tank your view of the game based on something that you've not really fully understood and sat to watch. And that might sound patronizing, but I think the dynamic of Westerners being highly critical to complex stories that don't just explain everything to you in a very linear, here you go kind of way, I think that dynamic has existed and been in place, and had Square Enix even alter their games into babyish, brain dead, fucking let's not trust the intelligence of our gamers, I think that's all happened for a reason, and it's this crap right here. This crap that has perpetually plagued the Final Fantasy series, and were it to be listened to, Final Fantasy VII would not exist in the way it does today. Just absolutely wouldn't. And I think it's fucking intellectually lazy to just do broad sweeping criticisms of plot devices and reference them to other things that have used that plot device, even though they don't use them in the same way. Like you can just say time travel bullshit, but what does that fucking mean? Does that mean the way that 13 used it? The way that that new Marvel's film used it? Or are we talking in the way that Steins fucking Gate used it? Now, which one? A brilliant example that comes to mind is Final Fantasy X. The amount of people who still think that the Zanarkand plot element is a time travel plot element, and it's not. It's an actual other geographical dream location. There's no time travel involved. The same way with Sephiroth coming back and manipulating events in the story, time travel may not actually be the story device being used. It could easily be one of the 1,000 different ways that memory and the life stream works and all the other intricacies involved in it. Something that is really deep, well thought out, fleshed out, just like the Zanarkand element was in 10, but to the simple mind that doesn't want to understand it, they do, oh, time travel bullshit. I don't like it. And a lot of people say that even when we don't actually know how it's being used, if that's even what is being used, and if so, within what context. And it's similar with Destiny. You can call Destiny some bollocks, but it's not like Kingdom Hearts has a monopoly on the concept of Destiny. I mean, how many RPG and JPG stories pretty much have Destiny in some format, whether it is some game prophecy that is actually playing out, or even Persona, for example. Even the concept of the wild card being a concept created by 2 gods that are warring each other up, Philemon and Nyarlathotep, whatever the fuck his name is. And that MC is, pretty much playing a destined role. I mean, that is in one kind of way Destiny, but it has a different taste, different flavour, a different lick of paint, and a whole different style to the way it's used in Kingdom Hearts. So just like almost every topic and issue in the whole world, nuance and context, it fucking matters. It matters a whole heap. And while some people can criticize the ending and tell me that nuance and context why, and there's actually a place for a good conversation, a lot of people can't provide that nuance and context because they just don't fucking understand what happened. And you may say, oh well, I mean, you should. I mean, that's the problem with the game. If you're coming away and you don't understand everything, if you need to go away and do other lore and watch other YouTube videos and know about what happened in that Ultimania and this one and that, then the game is flawed. It shouldn't be like that. Well, my question is, why shouldn't it? FF7 original, again, it had loads of stuff that you could only interact and come into full understanding if you did that other stuff. But at the same time, it's not required. It wasn't required for you to enjoy FF7. You didn't have to be some deep, crazy, down the hole story junkie to get the main beats, the enjoyments, the emotion evolution of the game that is happening. For example, you could take Aerith and Cloud being destined together, stars like Kate Sith, and take that as just a cute, fluffily romantic face value. Or you could go deeper and analyze the really intricate relationship, the guru-teacher relationship between Aerith and Cloud, but it's not essential. Exactly the same way this first FF7 Remake part has been teed up. What is inherently wrong with an open-ended, confusing mystery leaving you titillated and curious to see more on? It seems some people really see that as a critical negative, and coming from an original game that did pretty much nothing but that the entire way through, especially with the whole concept of Zack, something that was again shoehorn inserted in right towards the end of FF7's production. Zack was a very late concept. And I don't see anyone complaining about that because, again, that's got the nostalgia lens over it. Say if they'd have only introduced Zack in this remake, like the idea that Cloud has this weird other alter ego who may or may not exist. Kingdom Hearts bullshit! Oh yeah, sorry, I forgot. Yeah, that's what it is. And I love the freaking irony that the things that the Puritans are complaining about, aka the plot ghosts, the whispers, is exactly what Square Enix inserted those in for, to be a subtle narrative of that these are the plot Puritans, the plot ghosts, keep it on the same track, don't change anything. It's kind of like a hilarious call out to that aspect, to that doubt. All the words are boundless, terrifying freedom. The first trailer, it may bring fear for some, it may bring joy. Like Square from day freaking one knew this is how some people would interpret these changes, and they've been calling it out of the fucking sense. And it's just funny to see a lot of these people walk straight into that narrative trap. But anyway, there's no end to the stupid ass fucking review scores that are coming out on this game. I've literally seen quite a few even complaining the combat system is just Final Fantasy 15 done again. It's Final Fantasy 15! Like in what universe is 15 and 7 Remake the same combat system? They don't play or feel or even look anything remotely like each other. I mean, you might as well be making just the simple fucking comparison. There's a bit of magic and sword swinging in it. Thusly, it's the same as 15 Herp. Come on, when did reviews get so freaking lazy, so freaking entitled, so goddamn critical? Like, I've got a mate, well actually Elgin, who's mates with about 3 or 4 other people, and every time he talks to them about games, all they do, and I'm sure you guys might have some friends who are the same, doesn't matter what title comes on, it doesn't matter even if it's a 20-second showing at E3. You just got those players who, looks crap, looks shit, I ain't getting it, looks rubbish, they changed this isn't what the series is about, because I fucking know what the series is about more than the actual people who made the game. Have we forgotten that these are the actual same people who made FF7 original? What's more likely, that the original story developers, directors, staff, creative directors, that all of them are adding stuff that doesn't make sense in relation to the universe? Or is it more likely it just doesn't make sense to you? And to me, what it comes down to is the evolution of an art form. Exactly what is an art form supposed to do for a player? What's it supposed to arouse in them, make them think or make them feel? And the OGFF experience when it comes to Sephiroth is we didn't know who the fuck the guy was. We weren't supposed to know. Like, quite a significant margin of the game, he's supposed to be a mystery, like Jenova. The same Jenova that to this day, we don't even know the backstory or origins or really what it is or what it really thinks. And yet here there are people with this new remake saying that it's not new player friendly because it doesn't explain who Sephiroth is. Even the biggest hater of this remake, and maybe you hate the way they went about it, but you cannot deny that you would not have had the same feelings of fear, trepidation, confusion and sort of suspense about what Sephiroth and Jenova was, what they were up to. We would have had none of that had Square Enix done a like for like. No one who played the original game would have been mind blown by the plot twist that at the end of Midgar that the Shinra aren't actually the big bad guys, it's this other force, and that's what we've got to go after. So what would have been the point of keeping that same beat in place? Of keeping that reveal exactly the same as it is rather than reforming and reimagining it? Who would it serve? It wouldn't have served people who want a revisit to the original FF story, but one that authentically makes them feel what they originally felt when they played it. And it certainly doesn't serve the newcomers to the story. Oh, I feel bad for these new players, they're not getting the real FF7 journey. Well, they're certainly getting more than if they'd have walked into an office and saw some random sword in the back of someone. Which of course, and this is what I'll round this goddamn rant out. The only reason I'm really ranting is because these comments are so ranting. I've been reading so many of them. I'm feeling their rantiness. I've allowed it to infect me. I like to Nova Cells, fun enough. They've just sticking with my mood. But what I'll end this off on is, of course, a lot of this hatred was never, it was always going to happen. Even before FF7 Remake was announced, there were loads of people saying they should never ever do it. I remember arguing with them for years. There was just as big a portion the second the trailer came out. They were cynical and skeptical. Without a doubt, there was an impossible portion of the base for Square Enix to please, and it also ties into the impossibility of them doing this in a single game. And a lot of this hate and frustration, and again these reviews, is that it's hacked up into 1/5 of the game because Square Enix are doing it for money. It's a cash grab, and there's a lot of people who can't move past that. And my final nuance on that point is, while I definitely think there was padding in this first part of the remake, and I definitely feel like the plot could have pushed along to maybe up to calm, Junon Crossing would have been a bit of a bloody push. But regardless of that, one thing that is absolute fact, and I still can't believe that people who are too stupid to get this, original FF7 was a text-based descaled game. Anyone who thinks that they could now fully upscale, realize, animate, voice act, and design this game to today's standards and still fit it within a 50 or even generous 60 hours parameters of a single game, it's impossible. Absolutely shiting, goddamn impossible. And I still can't believe people, even after playing that first remake, even after seeing with their own eyes just how impossible it would have been, that's still where a lot of the negativity on this is stemming from. And yeah, it's an impossible to please side of the fan base. It's always existed. It's existed since OG days. It's existed even when Final Fantasy started moving away from the whole medieval dragons and castles style. Loads of people complaining about that they destroyed the style of Final Fantasy. So it just gets to a point where these people, and I know they're not all the same over all these years, but there's just that portion that needs to cut themselves fucking loose to finally come to realization that Square Enix have moved creatively in a different direction to what you want and what you like. And there's just a weirdness to me that people think that by them going for this bold, daring change to the story, because, you know, let's not forget there's hundreds of staff members who have to work on this for what could be many years. And they've kind of even admitted themselves they wouldn't have the passion just to pump out a like for like, let alone the players to have the same passion. And again, authentic, real fresh experience. I'm freaking terrified of what Sephiroth's got laid ahead. Aerith makes me feel more magical feelings than ever before. And yet people think that Square Enix working this new direction of the story, which I can tell has been done with painstaking detail to the universe as a whole, to the way that they weave in subtle double narratives, even color schemes, even theme songs blended together. The level of thought is absolutely phenomenal. And regardless of whether you love or hate the ending, to say that that is an easier, cash grabbier route than if they'd have just pumped out the golden ticket like for like, they just shat the golden nugget of copy pasturing a past product. How anyone can think that is absolutely fucking beyond me, but I'm done, I'm out. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. Did they just make Final Fantasy Kingdom freaking Hearts? Is Nomura to blame for it all? Honestly, if you have a counter opinion, let me know, because while I hate doing videos like this, ranting on people's subjective opinions, because we're all freaking entitled to one, it's just the lazy little bastards who write really sloppily, ill thought out reviews on the game. Until the next rant. I've not done in a while. Feels quite therapeutic. Kinda. Kupo!
Fireworks to light up your night sky. In a flash, life and love can go awry. Let me take you high.